Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another itty bitty knit kit that I got from Five Below. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in. And for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today, you guys, we are doing a viewer request. This is Sweet Slice. It's another itty bitty knit kit, and you can get this on at Five Below or on their online website. Let's see what's in this. So we have spools of yarn, plastic needle, knitting needles, stuffing, and felt stickers. Alright, if you'd like to do this kit, I highly recommend that you go online or to a store and get this yourself. This video is just to teach you the stitches needed to do this design. I can't talk about any details of the instructions due to copyright. Okay, and then here are the spools of yarn. Interesting. Loose yarn of red, I guess for the cherry. Okay, and then we also have a packet with our stuff. Here's the knitting needles, stuffing, plastic needle, and felt stickers. Alright, just so that we don't make this dirty or lose any of the pieces, I'm going to put these things back into the pouch and set that aside for now. Alright, and then here is the instructional booklet. It does come with some writing and illustrations for you to do the basic steps to create this project here. It also comes with a built-in ruler, so you don't have to go and get your own ruler. Let's see. I'm gonna do this. I always do my projects the way I want to do it. Sometimes I will explain some of the instructional booklet, so you can choose. You can either do how I do it in the video, or you can do how it's in the instructions. I do it the way that makes it easier and simpler for myself. I'm not gonna lie, these instructions always feel a little overwhelming to me. Comment below if they do for you as well. Some people are visual learners, some people are text learners, some are audio. So it all depends on your style of learning, and I'm just going to do this one way. It doesn't mean that you can't do it another. Okay. If you need to speed up or slow down the video, go ahead and click on the gear button in the corner. There's playback options to go fast or slow. If you don't need to hear me talk, you can always lower the volume on your device and click on the CC closed caption button. Again, I'm going to be going over new stitches at least 3 times step by step. People have this misconception of me going too fast thereafter, but it's because I break it down 3 times for you step by step. I can't do it throughout the whole video because it would take such a long time, and my videos are already long already. Alright, for this instruction, we're going to actually make, it looks like we're making 2 squares or rectangles. I don't know what they're calling them these days. You can't call it a square because it's not even, so I guess rectangles. Alright, one is one solid color in the pink, and then the other one has some striping. So let's, since there's only 2, I'll do 2. I normally like to do 1 now for video time purposes, and then you can just follow the same instruction for the next square rectangles, but let's get into this. Alright, so take your spool of yarn here. You're going to find one end to be very easy to look for. This is not the end that you want because it's attached to the outside. You'll have to remove the band, and when you start pulling, it's going to roll around. What you want to do is keep the band on, and you want to pull from the inside. So let's search for the other end on the inside, and that might be very nerve-wracking because it's hard to see. But one thing that I do is I'll just pull out a huge chunk. Sometimes it's not a huge chunk. Sometimes I get lucky and it's only a few strands. But if you pull out a chunk, it's fine. You're going to end up using it anyway. So I'll pull like a couple of strands out. And actually, I just found it here. All right. What you're going to need is like a paperweight or something to hold it down so it doesn't want to move with it. But as you pull on the yarn, it's not going to roll around. This wad came out because I pulled it out. But let us make pretend. Okay, so let's say you're continuing to pull. You have a little weight here. You're going to keep pulling. It's not going to roll around. You keep it intact because you have the band around it. It's just a neater way for me to get feeder yarn. So it's up to you if you want to do that. But anyway, so we're starting with this one. In the instruction, it tells you that you're going to need a piece of tail to start. They give you that measurement. What the tail is for is so that you can put your needle on here and sew the pieces together. I've had that question happen more often than I thought would happen. So I'm just explaining what the tail is. So what I'm going to do real quick is go off camera. I'm going to measure out this tail, and we're going to come back in and I'm going to show you what to do next. Alright, so I measured out my tail here. This is my tail. You don't want to confuse it with the feeder yarn because again, we're saving this length and I'm pinching it right where that measurement is. We're saving this length because we're going to use it to sew our pieces together. So what I like to do is take the feeder yarn and it's going to go downward. So off my table and down. The feeder yarn I want to keep up and away. That way I won't confuse the two pieces, because if you start to knit with your tail, you're going to find out right away that you're going to run out of yarn and then you're going to wonder what to do next. So keep this tail out of the way and the feeder yarn up and out. All right. Now from here, what we have to do is cast on with the slip knot. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your middle and ring finger and we're just going to hold the yarn apart like this, keeping this pinched at the measurement of the tail. Alright, so take your two fingers here, we're going to push up, we're going to turn down and create this little loop here. Now with your index and middle finger, grab that feeder yarn and pull it through that loop, creating a huge knot that you see here. So now that we're looking at it like this, it looks like a bow, right? We want to pull this top part right here, this one right here. Don't pull the bottom that's attached to the feeder yarn. What we want to do is tighten this knot pulling on this strand. So as I'm pulling it, I'm going to push this loop towards my thumb. So let's do that. And you want to do this because you would like to have that knot tighten just before your thumb, right where you're holding that measurement. So this is going to make sure that the tail is exactly the size it needs to be. If you're off by a little, like I keep pushing and there's a little smudging that I didn't get to pull through, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But you just want to get that knot as close to your other thumb as possible. And once you get to the point where you can't tighten that knot anymore, then you can take your tail and just pull it a little bit. This is going to make your knot nice and snug. Right? You don't have to pull it too tight. But now we have this huge loop. You want to hold your knot right here with your thumb and index. We're going to make this loop a lot smaller to fit 2 knitting needles. So what I would do is take your feeder yarn. We're going to gently pull on the feeder yarn until that loop is to the size we need, approximately enough to fit 2 knitting needles. Okay. I'm going to slip in my 2 knitting needles through that loop. and you can tighten it if you need to. Again, pulling the feeder yarn, don't confuse it with the tail. And now we're good to go. We cast using a slip knot, and we're ready to start casting on stitches to the needles. So again, tail down, feeder yarn up and out. All right, so this project consists of the knit stitch. The knit stitch is one of the basic stitches of knitting. And what we're going to do is get into our knit stitch position. So what that is we're going to cross our needles into an X. You want the right needle in the back, left needle in the front. You want your feeder yarn, your tail yarn down, and your feeder yarn up and out. I'm going to grab some feeder yarn around my right finger here, because we're going to start casting on some stitches. So one tip I'd like to share is that you always want to keep your needles touching, even if you're not doing anything. If it's at rest, try to keep your needles touching, because you never know if you have stitches here. Sometimes you're in the middle of making a stitch. If you let the needles loose, you could potentially lose your stitches and not know it. Keeping it clenched sometimes is probably the best way to go, but when you're in your knit stitch position, you also want it touching too. See, there's a very small surface that's always touching, because when we start doing things, this feeder yarn is going to be in between the two, and you don't want to lose it through the gap between the two needles. Okay, so knit stitch position, right needle on the bottom, left needle on top, feeder yarn down, and I have feeder yarn up and out, tail yarn down. And I repeat this several times because after repetition, it'll just stick in your head. So what we're going to do is wrap the feeder yarn around the right needle. We're going to go from back to front and just around the right needle. Okay, so you see that? Now we're going to pull down. We have our needles touching, so you're probably going to hear or feel a snap. I felt it that time. And again, we're having our feeder yarn stuck in this little crevice created by clenching our needles together. So that's why I say you always want it touching, because I'm talking, moving this around, and I'm not going to lose this piece in between those needles. All right, so from here, what we're going to do is slide our left needle down our right needle over the tip and down the back. All right, this is going to force the right needle to push the feeder yarn through this loop, creating a new stitch. So let's do that. Slide the left needle down the right needle over the tip. It's forcing the feeder yarn through that loop, and we're sliding it down its back, creating a new stitch. So now we have to have all our stitches on the left needle. So what do? We take our left needle and we poke through the new stitch right here to lift it off the right needle. So now we have 2 stitches on the left. All right, so let's do another one. Stick your needle through this new stitch right now. Get into your knit stitch position, which is an X. You want your right needle on the bottom, left needle on top. We're going to take our feeder yarn, and while our needles are always touching, again, just to remind you, we're going to wrap our yarn from back to forward around the right needle and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Right? I felt it snap. So it's stuck in this crevice here, and it's going to remain stuck there because we're always going to keep these needles touching. We're going to slide the left needle down the right needle over the point and down its back. That's going to force, oops, let it slip so you can see that. We don't want that. Keep it touching. that's going to force the right needle and push the feeder yarn through this new stitch that we have here. So let's do that now. Slide down the right needle over the tip and down its back. It's forcing that feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch on the right needle, but we have to transfer this stitch over to the left. So take your left needle and pick up that new stitch off the right needle, and now you have 3 stitches. All right, let's do this one more time with you guys. So stick your right needle through the new stitch we just created. We're going to get into our knit stitch position. Right needle on the bottom, left needle on top, always touching. We're going to wrap our feeder yarn around our right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. That time it made a noise too. We're going to slide our left needle down the right, over the tip, and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through that stitch, creating a new stitch on the right. But now we have to transfer this stitch over to the left. So take your left needle, go through that stitch and pick it up and off the right needle. So now we have 4 stitches. All right, so now that I've done this 3 times, step by step, you can rewind this part as many times as you need until you're comfortable making new stitches on the left needle on your own. But I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to finish the remaining stitches required for this rectangle. So let's go ahead and do that now. And I do get a lot of frustrated viewers out there, and I completely understand. Don't give up. You got this. It's going to take a bit. If you get stuck or feel overwhelmed or frustrated, take a break. You could come back in a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, heck, some return months later. Just reset your mind so that, you know, it's refreshed and you're thinking straight, because the more frustrated you get, the harder it is to learn how to knit. And it's really not as difficult as these instructions. So, I also recommend getting beginner booklets, because that's how I learned. I didn't have YouTube when I learned. I could have, I guess, but I never thought of that as a thing to reference at the time when I was learning. So, yeah, I would definitely try getting a beginner booklet if you're really down and out and can't figure it out. Okay, I think I have the right amount of stitches. Let me just see here for a sec. I think I'm short one. Let's do one more. All right, so once you get all the stitches made, we're going to move on to the next steps. It's automatic now, but I straightened it out, so I'm kind of roughing it up and making it look like it might look after casting on stitches. When you're holding on to the needle, you're shuffling around your stitches. So right now it's creating this kind of a thing. Some of you might have a spiral for all we know. I don't know. But what you want to do, because you want to make sure everything is straight and everything grows downward, you want to make sure that your stitches are straight. And this is one way to figure out if they're straight. This one is going around my needle. That is not straight. So what we're going to do is twist. Do this every time. As it gets longer, it's going to be easier to find out what is straight. but this will prevent you from doing extra stitches. I get a lot of comments of people saying that they don't know where these extra stitches are coming from, and I guarantee it's because the stitches aren't straight. When you do something like this, it kind of loops that stitch around and it creates an extra stitch. So you just want to make sure that when you straighten things out, you can see that your feeder yarn is doing something weird. We want it to be free. So if it's tied up in your needle like this, that's another way to accidentally increase your stitches. You want to make sure that your feeder yarn is free and that it's down and back. And you have a nice straight line of stitches like this. See? All in a row. All right. Now we can move on to the next steps, which is doing a row. And it's a knit stitch. So we're doing nothing entirely different than we did before. The only difference is once we move it on to the right needle, it stays on the right needle. So whatever number of stitches you have on this needle, we're just going to transfer over when we create new stitches on the right needle. And I'm going to show you what that means. So stick your needle into this top stitch here. Get into your knit stitch position. Okay, we're going to do a knit stitch, creating the new stitch on the right like we've been doing, but instead of transferring over this stitch over to the left, we're going to remove the stitch that we just used. So we have X number of stitches on this side. We've now created an extra stitch on the right needle. We have to lose a stitch on the left needle so that we can maintain the same number of stitches that we started out with. So I just pushed up all my stitches. You want to be very careful about this so you don't lose more than one. So I move them up. I'm just going to kick off that one stitch that we just used. So just flick that off and that's it. We have the new stitch on here. We have less a stitch on the left and we can do another one. So stick your needle into the next stitch on top here, get into your knit stitch position. We're going to do a knit stitch. Okay, now we just gained a stitch here, so we have to lose a stitch here. So scoot up your stitches and be careful, you just want to get rid of this one that we just used. So if you count all the stitches on your left and add the stitches on your right, you should have had the same number of stitches that we started with. So let's do this one more time with you guys. Stick your needle onto this next top stitch here. Get into your knit stitch position. We're going to do a knit stitch. All right, we created a stitch on the right needle. We have to lose a stitch on the left needle. So push up your stitches and flick off the stitch that we just used. So again, if you count up all the stitches together, you should have the same number of stitches that you started with. All right, so now we can move on to completing all of these stitches. You can rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing these knit stitches on your own. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this off, and then we're going to go back and see what we have to do next. So if you've already completed an itty bitty knit kit, click that like button. But if you have already, you already know kind of what it looks like. So from kit to kit, it should be the same. It uses the same stitches. It's just, you know, different numbers of stitches, different number of rows, and then obviously how you put it together. All right. right, so here we've kind of completed a row, and it looks different this time. It's different from casting on needles. We no longer have any stitches on the left. And to do a new row, you always have to have stitches on your left if you're a righty. So what do? Well, we're just going to change hands. We're going to take our left needle and put it over to our right. Oh, I hope I said that before. You always have to have stitches on your left needle if you're a righty. I hope I said that right the first time. Anyway, this right needle now, we're just going to flip on over to our left. Okay. And again, so let's say you're kind of lackadaisical about flipping this. You see how this is, if this were straight, it's one stitch. This is how you get an extra stitch. If your feeder yarn is accidentally like this, up and back, because that one stitch now looks like two stitches. And I used to do that a lot when I was learning. So, and then if you straighten out your stitches, could you possibly, I don't know, it still wants to curve up. So it has to be a straight line. If it's starting to curve up or some weirdness is happening around here, you don't have it straight. You got to figure that out. You don't want to accidentally create extra stitches. And that, again, that's another thing that's been a comment in these videos, and I really would like to help out in that way. So just make sure that when you're looking down on this, that it's straight. So right now we can see that the tail yarn wants to move up. The feeder yarn is up. You always want to keep it down and back. And once you get that situated, you can straighten out your stitches again. And we see the tail yarn here, it's staying down. It wasn't curling back like it was before. And when we look at it this way, it looks all straight. All right, so now that we're here, pick up your right needle. All you have to do is repeat the same steps. Let's do the knit stitching. Stick your needle onto this top stitch, and we're just going to continue doing the knit stitches like we did before. So keep working that until you're all the way through the needle. So it's, once you get the hang of the stitches, it's fairly that easy. And I know as a beginner it will take a minute to get used to doing these stitches, so give yourself some grace, take your breaks, rewind this part of the video as many times as you need, where I'm doing it step by step. And like I said, I am going normal pace after I do my step by step, because this really just takes too long for a video. And it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. So again, when you finish the row, you have an empty left needle. We're just going to flip needles. So your left becomes your right, and your right, you flip over to your left. You make sure that your stitches are down. Otherwise, when we go like this, one stitch is going to turn into two stitches, like you see here. So always make sure that it's down. But all right, now we're pretty much going to repeat this as many times as we need till we get the measurement of the rectangle. It does give you a number of rows, but it says about. I don't think it used to say that, but you're gonna make about that number. So it could be more, it could be less, depending on how your stitches are, but at least make sure that your rectangle is the measurement that it says using the built-in ruler, because when we sew everything together, it'll be proportional to each other. All right, so I'm gonna do the rest in silence, and I'll jump back in to start the second square. This is where we change colors. It does get a little trickier, but not, we can figure it out. All right. All right, I have made this as long as I needed it to be per instructions, and now I'm going to show you how to cast off. So again, working with knit stitches, we're going to knit 2 stitches right now. So go ahead and knit 2 stitches. Okay. So in order for this to work, you need at least 2 stitches on the right needle. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this first stitch here and we're going to leapfrog it over the next stitch. So lift it up and leapfrog it over the next stitch. You can hold this stitch back with your thumb. I'm going to lift this stitch off the right needle. Okay. So 1 stitch is left on the right, and then I'm going to remove this stitch off the left needle. And that's how you cast off. So let's do this again. You always have to have 2 stitches on your right needle, so let's do a knit stitch. And now we have 2 on here. We're going to lift up this stitch right here, and we're going to leapfrog it over the next. You can hold it back with your thumb, but I'm going to lift this stitch off the right needle, and then I'm going to remove it off the left needle. So we're back to 1. Okay, let's do this one more time with you guys. Do another knit stitch because you always need 2 stitches on your right needle. There you go. Take this stitch here. We're going to put our left needle through it and leapfrog it over the next. You can hold this stitch back with your thumb, remove this stitch off the right needle, and then off the left needle, and then you're back to 1. So rewind this part as many times as you need until you're comfortable casting off on your own. But I'm going to finish all the remaining stitches on the left needle. You will be left with 1 stitch on your right, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. But first, I'm going to do these stitches. Alright, so I got rid of all the stitches off the left needle. We do have that 1 stitch left on the right. What you're going to do now is we're going to cut about 1 inch or so of our yarn. We're going to yarn over, which is wrapping this feeder yarn over the needle like this, so it looks like we have 2. So now we can leapfrog this one over that yarn over. You can hold back with your thumb and lift that off the right and then off the left again. But this time we're going to pull this right needle all the way out, and then we're going to tighten up that loop to turn it into a knot. And we finished our first rectangle here. Okay. So that is how you do a simple rectangle. Now we're going to get a little complicated because we're going to be transitioning colors, but it's going to be okay. So This one, unfortunately, is like wrapped up this way. So you just gotta unravel it, and then you just have to work with it the way it is. If you have the time, you can unravel it to a ball. If you have machines, there might be a better way to do it. I don't know. I don't have one. But what I am going to do is I have a little cylinder here. I am going to put this right on here so that I can kind of either spin it or lift it off. Okay, but we're going to be working with yellow now. So off camera, I'm going to measure out the tail because this rectangle has a tail as well. This tail is going to be used to sew on this piece. So be right back. Alright, so I have measured out my tail here. We're going to keep this down off the table like we've done before. The feeder yarn I'm going to move off and up out of the way. And again, we're going to cast on with a slip knot. So take your middle and index, hold the yarn apart. We're going to take 2 fingers here and we're going to lift up, turn it down to create this loop. With your index and middle finger, grab that feeder yarn and pull it through the loop, creating this huge knot. We're going to push it towards your thumb, pulling this top piece, not the bottom one, attached to the feeder yarn. Okay, so keep pushing this down. And this one isn't as good as last time, but we did only waste just this much yarn, so it's not too bad. Now that we did that, you can take your tail and pull it to make that knot just a little more snug. We have this huge loop here, so now we have to hold on to this knot. We're going to pull on the feeder yarn to make that loop small enough to fit 2 knitting needles. You can fit your knitting needles in here and then tighten this up if you need to. But now we're ready to start our casting on of stitches. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, you guys, because we've been through step by step how to cast on, I'm going to cast on all the stitches and do the rows of yellow. I'm going to stop when we transition to pink so I can show you how to do that. Now it tells you the length of these rows. So again, you can go by the number of rows it tells you to. Honestly, I wouldn't go off of that because time and time again, I would see that the number of rows that I do does not make that length. So I'm wondering how the heck did they get there? So what I would do is you have your ruler on the side. I would just eyeball it. So if you see in the diagram, there's only a little sliver of pink and the outsides are yellow. Then you can kind of gauge where you should stop this first yellow to do your pink. So that's as best I can provide because yeah, they're not great, these instructions. All right, so let me do this in silence. I'll come back in when we do the pink. All right, so this is the yellow that I have left, and I did do the rows that they asked you to do. I am actually going to go by what they say. I'm going to switch to pink because I want to get the pink in there. I don't know how much yellow I've left. I don't even know if I have enough yellow to have the same number of rows when I'm done. So comment below, let me know what your yellow's looking like, but I'm going to do the pink right now. So what you need to do is get your pink. All right, this time you don't need a tail because we're going to be working directly with this yellow. But what I am going to do is take my ring, pinky, and thumb, hold one end, then take my index and middle and hold the other. Take 2 fingers, I'll lift up, turn it down. With the index and middle finger, we're going to take this feeder yarn and pull it through the loop to create this huge knot. Then I'm going to pull this top here while pushing that loop or that knot towards my thumb. This way we'll minimize the amount of waste that we're making. Okay. Once you get to a point where you can't push it down any further, then you can take your excess piece and pull it so that that knot is nice and snug. Hold the knot, you have this huge loop. I'm going to now pull the feeder yarn to make the loop small enough to fit your knitting needles. Okay. So now pick up your project here. Tail yarn down, feeder yarn up and out. Alright, so we're going to stick this needle like we would on the top here to do our knit stitch. But this time what we're going to do is I want to slip on the pink, okay? And we're going to slip it on before yarning over with the yellow, because we still have to kind of carry this up the rows. So I am only going to do this once for this row. So you have your pink on there now. Let's do our wraparound with the yellow. So now we have our pink and yellow in hand. We're going to create our knit stitch like we normally do. But now we have the pink and the yellow coming through. That's only going to be for the first stitch. For now, the remaining stitches on the left needle, we're going to be using pink. We can drop the yellow, just leave it down there. We're going to be using it again, so you can leave it there and not cut it. But we're going to use the pink for the remaining stitches. So let's do that now. It's funny because I think I have more pink than I do yellow, and it should be the other way around. So I'm hoping to get this the length that it's asking. I'm hoping that it'll be equal, but worst to worst, we'll just, you know, as long as I got the yellow, pink, yellow thing going on, I think it'll be okay. But we'll see if it measures the amount it's supposed to be. Alright, so we did our first row with pink. That's how you transition with pink. It's fairly simple, like that. Alright, then we're going to flip this over and we're going to do another row. All right, so for the last stitch, we have the pink and yellow. We're gonna do both of them at the same time. So stick your needle through both the pink and the yellow. And we're gonna do this last stitch with the pink. So there you go. Then I'm going to flip this because now we have to transition back to yellow. But real quick, looking here, you can tell which side is going to be the prettier side, because here we have a nice transition. On this side, we just have that band of pink before we have the yellow. All right, so let's transition. We're going to drop the pink and we're going to pick up the yellow. Okay, make sure you get the right side. I just picked up the tail. That is not long enough to finish this. Okay. In reality though, all right, let's secure this first and then we'll cut the pink off. Okay, so put your needle into that first stitch. We won't need the pink anymore, so we're just gonna do the yellow. We're gonna knit stitch with this yellow and we're gonna do one stitch only right there, because I'm gonna go take my pink now. We're gonna cut it off. We don't need it anymore. So cut about 1 inch or so. I'm gonna tie this pink around the yellow twice, not tightly, just enough to secure the pink in place. Double knot it. Okay. We're gonna hide the excess piece when we sew it together, so we don't have to worry about that. But I'm gonna go ahead and continue knitting the rest of the stitches with the yellow. All right. So as you can see on the prettier side, we've transitioned back to yellow and it looks all right. I really wish, this is too much cake. I wish, as much as I don't like a lot of icing on my cake, I wish I did a couple more rows on the pink, just because I feel like this little slither of frosting or filling isn't, it's not my cup of tea. I think I need it a little more thicker. Comment below, let me know how you like your cakes. Do you like them with a thicker filling, thinner filling? Do you like it to have too much icing, a little bit of icing? I like a little bit of icing. Icing is usually different from the filling sometimes. So the icing I want a little of, the filling I like to have a decent amount of. But I'm just going to continue using this yellow because I want to show you that stripe of pink again, so you can tell what side is the nicer side and which side isn't. wrong side, you can see the stripes of the pink. It's, you know, it's not that great. Okay, but when you flip it over to the right side, it looks a lot cleaner. All right. So I'm going to try to do as many of the rows as they were asking for in the yellow. I am also going to measure the size of the rectangle. I only have this much left of yellow. I'm going to make the size, if anything, so I might just have a thinner band than the other yellow, you know, maybe it'll be the same, I don't know. Maybe I'll run out and I can't, I don't know. But when we pop back in, I am going to put this together. So I'm just going to finish this rectangle, cast off, and we'll start assembling. But I'm going to do the rest in silence. Alright, so I totally ran out of yarn there. Saved it as best as I could. I'm gonna take my needle. Let's sew this together before this all comes apart. Alright, so let's take our first rectangle that we made. And we are going to sew this together now. So let's see. We're going to fold the sides together like this. It looks like it's not folded entirely. So what I'm going to do is use these stitch markers. Oh wait, let's pick the nice side. You can kind of just tell by looking at it. So this is the nicer side. I'm going to fold inward a little corner. And I'm just going to put a stitch marker here just to hold it down. I would invest in these. They're a great help. Then I'm going to take the other corner and I'm going to try to fold it in the same size. You can always halvesies this and then see if it's falling right where the other one is. This is all eyeballing at this point. Put a marker here to hold that down. Okay, let us, looks like this one's going to sew the top and this one is going to sew the bottom. So, thread this up. Alright, we're going to put the prettier side on the outside, but it looks like we're going to imagine folding this like this. Okay, it's got to go up like that. So we are going to sew this way. Now let's see. I want to try. Oh well, we'll do it just this way. Okay, so I'm going to match up my stitches and we're just going to sew it together. So let's do that now. Let's see, I might be able to make it around with the yellow. So let's see. All right, I think we're gonna leave a little bit open because we have to stuff. So let me actually just take this opportunity. I guess I didn't need the pink, but we'll see. I might have to sew the edge. But let me take some of this stuffing here. And I'm breaking it into pieces so that I can be able to position the stuffing where I want it. If you put it all in one piece, it's going to be a little hard to control. Now it says something about making the back of the surface of the cake narrower with a sculpting technique. What does that mean? Stitch through one side of the cake and out the other. Pull the stitch to get the desired shape. I mean, really? I don't know about that one, but we'll try it. So I'm leaving the pink out because it says something about being able to sculpt the back. I don't know if I need the back sculpted, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, last bit. I'm going to find my opportunity to tie a knot. And I'm going to take this excess piece and I'm going to stick it through one side and randomly out the other. That's a good way to hide the excess piece. I'm going to remove my stitch markers. I don't really need them anymore. And let's figure out what this thing is they're talking about. But it looks like they have this weaving down one side and then up and down the other. I don't know what that's going to do, but I'll do it. So I guess we just gotta find a straight line here. Okay. I don't know what that does, really. I don't know. But I'm going to take this opportunity and tie my knot either way. Then I'm going to go in one end and randomly out the other. And we're going to cut this. Okay, so we have our slice at least. See, again, I wish I did another couple rows because this looks like no filling at all. All right, we're going to do the cherry. So we're going to need to cut off a tail. So off camera, I'm going to go and measure this out, and then I'm going to cut off the tail. All right, so I cut off the amount that I need for the stem. I've got my red yarn here. I did measure off also the tail for this, and I put a stitch marker here because what we have to do now is wrap this around our fingers. Alright, so we're just going to take our 2 fingers here. Doesn't really tell you how far apart to hold it. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay. So we're going to do that, and we're going to wrap it around as many times as we can until we hit that stitch marker. Okay, which is right now. Alright, it tells you to cut it off, but I don't think you have to. Yeah. Remove it off your fingers. We're going to start wrapping this. We can remove the stitch marker. And this is going to become where the stitch marker was. It's where your middle is going to be. Let's just squish this down. And we're going to wrap this around the middle a few times before we tie a knot. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to put my finger in here, wrap it around one more time, and then where my finger is, I'm just going to slip this end piece a couple times on that loop, and then I'm going to pull tightly. This is where it gets a little confusing. All right. Just make sure that that sucker's on there. So now I'm going to take my scissor and we're going to cut through these loops. And it's going to create a pom-pom. And you can trim it. To look like a cherry. I might have to trim this a lot of ways down. Let me see. Take your needle and we're going to sew this on the top of the cake. Guess they really wanted you to trim this down a lot, didn't they? Alright, let me do that. So I tied my knot. I'm gonna trim this down even more. Okay. You can cut it down to make it look more like a cherry. Now it's telling you to make the stem. So we have to sew through this knot here on the top. Okay. Then it says we have to twist these two together. In the same direction. Let go and it should stick together. Ta-da! We do have to tie a knot for the end of the stem. So however length you want that to be, we're going to tie our knot. Tight. And then we're going to cut closer to the knot. And there's our stem for the cherry. And the last bit of it is to stick on these stickers. So let's get this on the side here. And let's do the mouth, I guess. So here's our mouth. We're going to stick it on here. In the middle, try to pinch it down so that the adhesive sticks to as much of the surface as possible. You could sew it in place with needle and thread, but I'm just going to use the stick. And we're going to do the eyes. Oh, look, it came out not that great. I'm just going to trim this. Okay. And we're going to place this down. Again, hold down so that the adhesive sticks to most of the surface. Then we're going to do the other eye. And you want to get it fairly even. Hold it down for a few seconds. All right. So here we are, everyone. Let me know how it went for you. This is what it's supposed to look like. So kinda. Let's see here. Comment below. Let me know how it went for you guys. Pretty cute. It wasn't too bad. Now I do have one more itty bitty knit kit to do left, but that was kind of down the list a little bit. I am doing a Dollar Tree one, viewer request. I have my Annie's. I do have a new kit that I want to show you guys that I'm really excited about. You can tell in my voice. It is really late here now, so Yeah, comment below, let me know how it went, and I'll see you all again next time. So thank you for watching. This is Booked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.